right. Okay. Good music to come in on. I know it's late in the late night hour. And I want to thank y'all for waiting up for me. Thank y'all very much for waiting up with me. For it's been a long day today. Kind of dragged out a little bit, but still nonetheless we here and we doing this. All right, let me get my lights together. All right. Okay. Yes. We're gonna be talking about the civil rights movement and the impact it had on the so-called black community. Did it really help the so-called black community? Because a lot of accolades in Black History Month, the month that we're in, so-called Black History Month, a lot of accolades is given to the civil rights movement, a whole lot. So much so that rarely do you hear any real so-called Black history given to the people who deserve to be talked about in history. Our inventors, there's a lot of inventors we don't know. A lot of inventors, a lot of pioneers, people that did things in this country. And we don't know about them because most of Black History Month is taken up by the civil rights movement and the people that were working in concert with the civil rights movement. So we're going to discuss that. But before we do, in the name of Lord Amen, I share this message with you all. I am the intellectual Lord Benjamin Manhattan, and this is Supreme American TV. And tonight I'm going to be discussing again the civil rights movement. Did it really help the so-called black community? No, it did not. If anything, it helped destroy the so-called black community. Whatever, communities we were trying to establish, that's what the civil rights movement was really geared to do. The civil rights movement was operating under the guise of bringing people together, but it was really about destroying black towns, black businesses, places that were a bastion for our people who were considered outcasts in their own country. The idea to have our people integrate into a society that we were already in before everybody got here, meaning that, we were told that, or we were pushed to become more and more part of mainstream society, right? And, you got to ask yourself, well, what were we a part of before the push for civil rights? We were just really in limbo. So-called black Americans, aka American Negroes, aka the American Indigenous people, the real American Indians of this land who were here already before everybody else, who they reclassified. The U.S. government been reclassifying the hell out of us ever since they came here and set up their government. They had us in limbo. They didn't want to give the indigenous people of this land, the so-called black Americans, the so-called American Negro, because that's why I'm leaving off at American Negro, because from American Negro, from there came the American Indians. We were the American Indians, and they reclassified us as American Negroes, and we were that for a very long time. Now, Chat GPT, when you ask about the word Negro in connection with American Indian, because they can't hide the fact that the government, reclassified our people as American, from American Indians to American Negroes. So now, these BS Chat GPT and all these information apps are sitting up here talking about the Native Americans were called Negroes. They were never called Negroes. The American Indians were called Negroes. You see how they trying to make American Indian and American Native American synonymous with each other, and they're not. The Native Americans are not the American Indians of the 1500s to 1400s. The original American Indians are black people, black Americans. We are the descendants of those people, straight descendants. And your civil rights and your Black History Month does not talk about that. Because ask yourself a question: how is it that a bunch of people who supposedly came from Africa, because that's the lie they tell, the outrageous lie, that a bunch of Africans who were forcibly brought over here from Africa into America, forced to assimilate. This is the story they tell. We are a bunch of Africans that were brought over here from Africa, forced to come over here, right? Forced to come over here and forced to work, and were discriminated against and everything else, hated on, right? And you know, pushed into bondage, and had our family stripped from us, right? Had all kinds of atrocities happen to us in this society under this government that allowed it, turned its eye to it, said we didn't have any rights, yet we were stripped from, according to the story, we were stripped from our homeland. So we basically deserved the treatment we got because we were considered property, right? Now, after we were no longer considered property, after the end of slavery, we were free to move about without having people ask us, well, do we have freedom papers in our own country? Keep in mind, it's all going on in our country. We watch the Caucasian people come here, then they flip history around, start lying about them bringing us here from some African slave trade, which again, the African slave trade really just went into South America, didn't really come over here into North America. But because again, they just enslaved and kidnapped and and took hostage the indigenous people and forced them to work. Okay, that's the real story. You see, this is not something we're going to get in Black History Month, which is why I said I can't stand Black History Month, and I cannot stand the Civil Rights Movement, because the reason why we were discriminated, I don't tell the whole story, that the reason why our people were discriminated against in this country, our country, is because we are indigenous to America. Martin Luther King kind of let it out a little bit when he talked about, he pretty much said in a coded language that the so-called American Negro is, or America is the home of the American Negro. So he was basically insinuating that our people are indigenous to America. And like I said, this whole idea, is fairly new about us Black Americans being Africans. That's fairly new. And that's a lie they keep on trying to push in the media. Same way with Black History Month, and the same thing with Civil Rights Movement, how it supposedly was aimed at helping our people, integrating our people into society. What they really, the US government really wanted to integrate was our economy. They wanted to integrate our economy into the US economy. In other words, they did not want us to have independent towns, independent, separate spaces for ourselves. You see, like the Native Americans, because we were pretty much, in our towns and places like that where we were separate, we were basically building our own economy in our own separate towns. Your Black Wall Streets and places, a lot of places like that where it was Black people had their own towns. They didn't go around the white people. They didn't go around the white people. They stayed amongst themselves. They may have worked for them maybe, or found other ways to make money, but they didn't live around them. We were trying to establish our own towns. We had places in the Carolinas where our own towns were established, and our towns that were established, our businesses were being established, because again, when you can't go to other people to get anything that you need for your needs of things, you have to go amongst your own people. You have to start your own businesses, create your own businesses. And that's what our people started to do. And they wouldn't even let us do that. The government had an issue with us creating our own towns, having our own businesses, being separate from the Caucasian immigrants that came here. But again, that was a problem, because we started to really build our own economy, and they wanted that stopped. Thus, or in comes people like Martin Luther King. Because keep in mind, you had movements like the Nation of Islam that was still growing around that time in the 50s and the 60s, started in the 30s. And you had people like Elijah Muhammad, strong voices like Honorable Elijah Muhammad, telling our people to do for self, pool their money, things like that, and start making moves for themselves, buying property, buying farmland, because if you could feed your people, you can create whole economies. And our people still had a lot of farmland here. And so pooling the people together, the government saw that, our unification, monetarily, ideologically, they saw that our cooperation with one another, because we were starting to cooperate with each other. A lot of people started looking toward the Black Muslim movement, the Nation of Islam, lot of people started losing faith in white Christianity and looking more toward, having something for themselves. A lot of people wanted to, have a separate, a separate enclave to themselves, much like the Native Americans, like the Amish, like the Jewish communities and whatnot. They have their own separate enclaves. And this is all the Black people wanted. They wouldn't even let us have that. They wouldn't let us have that because we're not immigrants. If we were immigrants in America, we could have had our own communities. We could have had our own section. That's why I tell y'all, you so-called FBAs. And by the way, I was being sarcastic in that apology I made to y'all. I was being sarcastic. I was apologizing for trying to, raise the intelligence of simple-minded people. I won't do that again. But anyway, moving on. So, our people were doing for themselves. Our people had businesses and things for themselves. Our people had their own baseball leagues, things like that. We were saying we're not going to wait on Caucasian people to integrate us into a society that they were still building up. Because keep in mind, a lot of stuff, they make it seem like they had so much going on. A lot of white people in their areas and things like they had so much going on. They really didn't. They really didn't have much going on. They were still building up their economy too. And again, they wanted to make sure, meaning the U.S. government wanted to make sure that we didn't build a self-sustaining economy. If we have access to land, we can sell food, we could do all kinds of things. We can pool money and, purchase land and actually build things and have businesses that service only us, because that was the goal that our people were striving to do, was to, be of service to themselves, servicing themselves, making sure that our people had, you see. And again, you had organizations like the Nation of Islam that were, advocating to do for self ideology amongst our people. And again, when you got people who are not going to integrate you into society, what do? You start doing your own thing. You start forming your own society within a society. And they knew that our people can actually do it. That's why they destroyed Black Wall Street and all that. So people like Martin Luther King were brought in, aka Michael King, and other civil rights components were brought in to basically crush the economy of Black people. That's really what that was about. Integration was about crushing the economy of Black people. The U.S. government did not want Black people to have their own economy here. Not while they were trying to build up the white economy. They went so far, the U.S. military went so far, because you had all these so-called Black men who are out here fighting in every war, right? Being told they have to, serve their country. Then when it came time for their veteran benefits, they were denied. They were denied. You know how many people were denied? Black men were denied veteran benefits that were given to white soldiers, and these Black men risked their lives. Just that alone, nobody talks about that. Why is that not talked about in Black History Month? How this country expected Black men to be slave soldiers. Because I was going to do something called Slave Soldiers. I might work on that, called Slave Soldiers. Maybe a documentary on how Black men were forced to fight in the U.S. military and they didn't receive compensation for that, because white soldiers were paid. They were given benefits. They were given vouchers for homes and things like that. And Black soldiers were denied. So they was expecting our people to be slave soldiers, you see. And this is why I say, even though it is ambitious and to think that we're going to receive reparations for all of the mistreatment and all of the, undermining of our economy we were trying to build here, to think that we're going to get reparations for that. That's kind of, because you had these people, these racist Caucasians who run this system. They were hell bent on making sure we did not have an economy here, making sure that they took every bit of land from our people that was fertile land. We lost millions of acres of land here in this country as Indigenous Americans. They erased us as indigenous Americans. They sit up here and lied about us being from Africa. So if a people would sit up here and do foul and wicked and demonic things like that to a people just because we are indigenous to the land, you even got these so-called Native Americans who sitting out here and the white races is coming out of them. They calling us N-words and things like that because we are speaking up for the truth of who we are as first Americans. They even getting triggered by that. The truth triggers a lot of people. They don't like the fact that we the only real Americans here that are indigenous to this land. And this is why I didn't understand why the so-called FBAs, I said, why would you want to call yourself anything other than American? Why would you want to call yourself anything other than American? To call yourself anything less than American or first American, as we say, first American is really downplaying you. You being downplayed as blacks, like a section of people in your own country. But we get it. You so-called black people think like second-class citizens. So I get it. You would rather be black people in your own country. Okay. White people don't have to be European Americans in this country, and they are from Europe. You would rather be African Americans. You'd rather be foundational black Americans. You'd rather be linked to this society other than to understand that we were here before there was a society. We talking about us as original Americans, first Americans, the only real Americans. And the civil rights movement, that Martin Luther King, Bayard Rustin, a sodomite, what's her name? Who wasn't even, she wasn't even black. What's her name? I forget her name. I forget Rosa Parks. She wasn't even black. You see, they was tied to this stuff, but it was all a setup. It was all a setup to finesse so-called black people out of their businesses, finesse them out of property, finesse them out of being independent in this society, erase black business, even up to when they took Jackie Robinson, when the National Baseball League took Jackie Robinson into the National Baseball League. When they took them in, the NBL is a National Baseball League. When they took him in because they had a lot of black, so-called black players who were really, really good players. And a lot of people were coming to see the Negro League games. And a lot of money was being made in the Negro Leagues, because again, if they didn't have to take so-called black people into the major leagues, they wouldn't. But what the major leagues saw was a whole economy that was being siphoned off from the major leagues. You had a lot of people starting to go to and watch Negro League games because the athleticism was better. The black men were better athletes. The so-called black men were better athletes. So when we strive to do better, to do greater things and whatnot, people take notice of that. And like I said, being that we the culture, people always eventually, make their way over into what it is we doing, like our music, blues, jazz, R&B, country, soul, hip hop, everything, rock and roll, all our music. Right? People called it nigga music, called our music. When they first heard nigga music, then when it got popular, oh, it's American music. Yeah, nigga music is American music. But my point being is that the whole goal was to destroy our businesses, and the foundation of our community is our businesses. The foundation of our community is our businesses. Now you see so-called black people, we don't even have a business mindset no more. Black people don't even have a business mentality no more. We don't think business-wise. We think about automatically, we think about just going to get jobs for white people. We don't think business-minded no more. We don't think independently no more. But see, back then we were a whole different type of people. A lot of our people were trying to start businesses, doing for themselves, were independent. You had some people who, they still had a working class mentality. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that because they did what they had to do to feed their family. But a lot of our people, like I said, we were seen as competition to the immigrant Caucasians who were still making their way into this country, and the ones who were here, who came over and, like I said, and were given land by the U.S. government, because all the land that these Caucasians have here in America was given to them by the U.S. government. Their family had land for years in this country, and it was taken from the indigenous people, our people. We were run off the land, and they were given the land. They stole from our people, robbed from our people, took land, drowned out our towns and things like that. And that's never talked about. How come that's never talked about in the civil rights movement? How come that's never talked about in Black History Month? How come all this stuff is not talked about? Black History Month and the civil rights movement are really controlled occurrences. They're very controlled. The civil rights movement was always controlled. You see, the civil rights movement was not an independent operation that Martin Luther King was just doing, because you got to ask yourself, and all them people that went out there and marched and locked hands and did all this stuff, they had to be allowed to do that. They had to be allowed to come and gather and go state to state like that, and do all of this marching and things like this. This was all a show that was put on. This was all a show that was put on in order to break the economic backs of Black people who were looking to be independent, who were doing things on their own, who were separate from and wanted to be separate from white people. Our people didn't want to be around them. Our people didn't really want to work for them, anything. As soon as, like a good example of this is in, I believe it was in the Carolina, South Carolina, if I'm not mistaken. When a lot of black women in that time were working in the homes of Caucasian women, taking care of their children, cleaning their house, basically living as a domestic, working for them. And they really didn't want to do that. So when their husbands were able to start making money and getting their pensions from the army, some of them did, they made their wives stop working for these white women. These white women had a fit. They didn't have Black women to serve them and take care of their children, because they didn't want to take care of their children. They didn't want to be mothers. The Black women were taking care of their children. When they stopped, they tried to get a law passed to make Black women force Black people to work for them. Because they again, that's just like slavery, forcing us to serve them. You see, and the civil rights movement was another way to forcing us to serve them. Because like I said before, and a lot of y'all don't know this, and people are not linked to this reality knowledge, and that is that the Depression, and I stand on this, the Depression that took place in the 30s, what was it, 20s, the 30s, Great Depression, I think the late 20s into the 30s. The Great Depression that took place because a lot of Black Americans started leaving the South and leaving the southern regions. They were no longer picking cotton or doing all the things of growing and harvesting and doing farm work and things like that for these Caucasians, because there was a lot of lynchings going. And so our people would leave these areas. And when they left, it left the economy depressed, because a lot of these Europeans, these Caucasians, they didn't know how to work the land. They didn't know how to work on the land. They didn't know how to grow on the land. So a lot of the land went under, and a lot of the banks ended up taking a lot of the land from these Caucasians, because they didn't have Blacks doing sharecropping and none of these jobs, because they would leave and come into the North because of the lynchings. Y'all follow what I'm saying? So we broke the economy of America. When we no longer worked on these and doing the sharecropping and stuff like that, we was breaking the backs of this country. We broke the economy's back in this country. You see, now that's why when they would try to force our people to stay down south, they was passing these anti-lynching laws because they wanted Black people to stay down south, and Black people was just leaving the South. They didn't want to stay down there no more around white people, these racist Caucasians. They didn't want to stay around them, and they didn't want to work for them no more. You see, they just did what they had to do to survive and whatnot, but they got tired of that. Once another opportunity opened up to come to the North, they left. They rather deal with and took chances up north than be down south, being around them, having to deal with their BS. You see, and again, trying to figure ways to keep our people under the thumb of these racist Caucasians, having them work, having our people basically still slaving for them, because the sharecropping system, our people were basically getting ripped off in the sharecropping system. And a lot of that land went under. And like I said, they was trying to force our people to stay in the South. These Caucasian people owned land. They would be at the railroad stations and whatnot, stopping Black people from leaving. As if slavery was, this is going on in the 30s and the 40s. They was with shotguns telling our people they couldn't get on the buses and leave because they knew that once black people left, they had no more workers and they land went under. I say bravo to that. They hated the fact that our people were progressive and prosperous without them. Yeah, you see. So the civil rights worked against our people. The civil rights and people like Martin Luther King, they worked against our people. I don't know why people see him as an icon. I don't get it. You know, anybody that's going to sit up here and tell our people that we should go out in the street and beg white people to serve us food, beg white people to give us services. Anybody would tell our people that and tell us that we have to be nonviolent while we are forcing people to take our money, while we are letting people bash our heads in, have dogs bite our women, spray water hoses on it. That was some degrading shit. I'm gonna just be honest with you. I can't stand Martin Luther King at all. At all. And the civil rights movement holds him up as an icon. I call him an icon. Martin Luther King was a coon. And I know people are going to disagree, they ain't going to like that, but he was. You see, because again, you sacrifice your own people, you sacrifice your people so that you can get attention, so that you can get credit, so that you can be seen as an icon. And what did it really produce for our people? People sit up here and talk, yeah, see, you got the right to vote. Vote for what? Voting don't benefit black people. Voting does not benefit you. You see, voting does not benefit you. Nobody cares about our votes. They only want you to vote just to keep this system going. And they want you to vote Democrat, Republican. But if you are no longer voting, you are no longer participating in a system that does nothing for you. Black people talk about reparations. Hell yeah, black people, Black Americans in particular. Hell yeah, we deserve reparations here. Hell yes. Are we going to get it? Hell no. Well, I'm going to say maybe not. I don't think so. Why? Because trying to shame people, constantly running things into Congress and all that, and people got to study this and study that, they're not trying to give us nothing. They don't care about what they did to our people. Your big time liberal, what's that guy's name? I forget his name. Bernie Sanders. He said when they asked him about reparations for black people, that's not feasible. And then before that, he said, for what? Reparations for what? But by the same time, he don't see no problem with Israel or Holocaust survivors getting money for something that didn't even happen here. He'll never say no against that. He'll never say for what about Holocaust. So he don't say for what, it didn't happen to them. That's what they tell us when we talk about slavery. Well, it didn't happen to your people. It happened to your great. That was a long time ago. Well, so was the Holocaust. So was that. But their children could get money though, right? And that didn't even happen here. You know, people can get compensated for what they went through here, but not us. Now, why is that? Right? Why was that? Because the difference between us and everybody else, everybody got compensated for slavery. The slave masters got money. The Japanese who got interred in internment camps here in this country, who were living here, they got money. The Holocaust survivors, everybody got money. Everybody comes here, gets money. But when it comes to our people, we're expected to fight in wars and not be compensated. We're expected to do whatever we're supposed to do, whatever they tell us to do, and we get the short end of the stick. We get people sitting up here who openly hate our people, but yet they're sitting in judgment for us and telling us we're going to get a fair trial. See, this all came about, and this is all due to civil rights. All of this is due to civil rights. You see, civilian rights, yeah, civilized rights. Why did it take this long? Why did it take into the 60s to start talking about this? All the other immigrants got these civil rights or these rights. They natural born. How come we're not? If they say we came from elsewhere, if they claim we came from another place, if they say that, we are that we are, what's the word they want to say? We are immigrants, that we came from Africa. How come we don't get the same things or same rights as immigrants? Is it a color thing? Is it a color thing? Can't be. Because East Indians, Hindus, they don't have to fight for no rights. Everybody that comes from elsewhere, all the other immigrants that come from elsewhere, you've never heard of any other immigrants having to fight for civil rights in this country. They're automatically given rights in this country. They're automatically given rights. Automatically. It could be somebody that come here tomorrow and whatnot. They're automatically given rights over so-called black people. And you know why that is? Because the goal is to erase black people. Ignore black people. That's how you start to erase them. Okay. So you FBAs, you pro-blacks, you don't get it. That's why I said stop declaring yourself as black people. When we said we first Americans, we letting it be known our identity is American. First American and only American. You calling yourself black people, you helping with your own damn erasure. You FBAs are helping with your own erasure. When I asked the question, I'm going to ask it again. When I said, what's more powerful, us declaring ourselves as first American or foundational black Americans? What's more powerful? Hell, that's just one step above. That's one step above and beyond just saying American. Because if we could, we would just say American. Because we are Americans of America, the only real Americans. They don't want to give us that title. They don't want to just give us that title. You see? Somebody said exactly. If voting could change the system, it would have been considered illegal. They don't want to change the system. They don't want to change the system. You see, I was standing up for who we are as first Americans, and the FBAs got mad at me. That show you how screwed up they are. I told you, all these people who are claiming to be so proactive or progressive in our evolution, you're going to find out they really working against us. Your FBAs, your Pan-Africanists, right? These people outside, your racist Caucasian, they on the same team, man. And they was the same people still working that civil rights nonsense. You see, all black people wanted was a separate area. We wanted separation. We wanted separation. Like the Honorable Elijah Muhammad was saying, we wanted separation. We didn't want civil rights. We wanted separation. We wanted to live separate from the Caucasians, like how we was when they came amongst us. We was living separate. They forced us to be around them. They forced us into bondage because they couldn't work the land. They couldn't establish their own settlements here in America. That's how slavery came about, because they couldn't do no work. So they were dying and they needed us to work for them. That's why they were taking our land and forcing us to work, because without us, without the system of slavery, there would have been no economy here and they couldn't have survived here. So they needed our people begrudgingly. And because they needed our people to be working in the system, even after slavery, they had our people out here sharecropping, still working on the farms and things like that, still working on plantation style setups, like it still was slavery. Still trying to keep our people into bondage by force. You see? And Martin Luther King comes along and they utilize him to push our people further under the thumb of these racist Caucasians. He was working with them people. Martin Luther King was working with them people. Okay? He was working with them, and all them civil rights people were working with them. That's why they so buddy and cozied up to him. And the only reason why they got rid of Martin Luther King is because he started talking about the Vietnam War. He started talking about all kinds of, things that, was out of the scope of what they wanted him to talk about. After the civil rights thing was done and he did all his work and worked against our people, and a lot of our people's businesses went out. We went out of business, a lot of our stuff, because now, you can shop around white people now. You can, integrate in our people, because they had an inferiority complex, like a lot of our people still do have this inferiority complex. They thought that they could integrate themselves into society. And it still is not working today. I was going, like, for example, the so-called justice system. The justice system is run by racist Caucasians. And how of course, the differences in sentences, black people get as opposed to white people who do the same crimes. Sometimes they don't even charge them with anything because white people don't want to send other white people to jail. They have no problem sending black people to jail because you're not their people. They got no problem. They don't want to send white people to jail. That's why you got people who are essay, as they say, essaying people, graping people. You got to use these words now. Doing this to people, and they getting off scot-free. They letting them go. I can name these 5 or 6 cases where they letting young white boys go who done did all these essays on people, and how this again plays into the civil rights, and how it really didn't help the black communities, because civil rights, we should have been pushing for our own police force that arrests our own people. We should not have had Caucasians. Even today, Caucasian police should have nothing to do with arresting black people. They should have nothing to do with arresting black people, because, for people that's sitting here paying taxes in this country, citizens of this country, to have to be unfairly and unjustly put through a legal system, put through a racist system, so-called law enforcement that favors one group of people over another, that's wrong. And civil rights help play a part. Now, our people should have been pushing for their own areas, their own police force, their own judges, our own everything. Same way the Native Americans got. We should not ever, our people, special, separate class of people, first Americans, and we should have been pushing for our own areas, our own police, within the police department, where they have no jurisdiction over us. That's the only thing we should have been pushing for, because anytime they in our areas, anytime they're gonna, they could just release a bunch of racist Caucasians with badges into our areas and shoot our people down and whatnot, and claim they were afraid for their life, when they shouldn't be dealing with our people anyway. They should only deal with their own kind. Yeah, they should only deal with their own kind, but they don't want that. They want an unfair system. They want to keep an unfair system. And the civil rights aided in that. You see, the civil rights aided in that. Martin Luther King aided in that oppression of our people, whether you know it or not. He aided in that. You see, and like I said, he was obviously compensated for that. He wasn't just going around just doing that. That was a setup. The civil rights movement made us more dependent on racist Caucasians. That's what it did. In a nutshell. And I'm going to show you something. Like a lot of these religious figures, these reverends, they are always used by people behind the scenes who want to introduce all kinds of negative and degenerate things into our society, like that lady Margaret Sanger, who came with Planned Parenthood. Where she went, basically that was where they had so-called black women out here aborting their babies, right? Margaret Sanger pushed for that, for black women to destroy their children, right? Because she was a white racist, and she wanted an extermination of black children. And you so-called black women who are doing that to your children today, you need to thank Margaret Sanger for that. She made it possible for you to abort your babies. You see, that's who you got to thank for that. That's Hillary Clinton's hero, Margaret Sanger, Planned Parenthood. She went to the black churches. She went to the reverends, the ministers. She went to the black churches, because they know if they gave the black churches money, her backers, if they gave them money, they would push anything to the so-called black community. The black churches have always been the gateway to the black communities. You see, and that's why they use Martin Luther King, Reverend Martin Luther King, Reverend Jesse Jackson, who came with the African American thing. All these reverends and ministers, they come in pushing this whole God complex, this God energy. And what does that do? It destroys the minds of our people. They're the same ones that push black on our people. You see? So, no. Yeah, Martin Luther King was a reverend. Yeah, Martin Luther King was a Reverend Martin Luther King. Reverend Jesse Jackson, right? Reverend Ralph Abernathy. All these men of God, when that would really meant men of those people behind it who pulled these strings. They were men of God, men of the beast, men who were set up to derail our people. Again, you had great men out there like the most honorable Elijah Muhammad, you know, who was pushing to do for self. Now, the people talk about the Muslims had backers and whatnot. Okay, maybe they did, but so what? Maybe they did. Maybe H.L. Hunt and all that backed Elijah Muhammad, and people talked about that, but they were able to turn it into something, whatever help they got. Because again, keep in mind, our people were left on, we were left on our backs out here. And still our people found it hard to work together and have a common ground because we still had a lot of that tribalism in us, that indigenous tribalism in us, which is also why Black people can't do nothing. They can't stick together today. This is exactly why. So, answer to that question, no. Civil rights, the civil rights movement, it didn't help our people. It didn't. To be able to just go and spend your money in a place that's going to enrich other people, of course they're going to take your money. And let's just be for real, we was always spending our money in this country. There was never a time when we couldn't spend our money. So what the hell really was the civil rights movement all about? It was all about destabilizing Black businesses. It was all about destabilizing any enterprise that we had. There should still be a Negro League. There should still be a Negro League. Yet now you got people selling Negro League memorabilia who are probably Caucasians making money off of that. You see, a time where we had our own thing, time where we had our own leagues, our own businesses, our own, like I said, we could have, did a lot to establish ourselves, reestablish ourselves in this country, had not the racist Caucasians was sitting by and didn't want to see us. They would work against us, whether they were sitting in governmental offices or they were sitting in law enforcement. Like today, they are against our progression. They are against our progression. They would rather see us be out here hustling and selling narcotics and going and balling out. That's why they love to make them movies, the Hollywood behind these movies, BMF, Power. They would rather see our people be criminals because that's meant to be a setup. They don't want to see our people get out here and do businesses legally above board and whatnot. They don't like seeing that. They don't like seeing that. They don't like seeing our people operate above board, work together, unify. And again, that also goes to tell you that at one point in time, and I still think to this time, our people were really the majority here in this country. At least that was the case before the turn of the century, the 20th century. That was the case because they started bringing in a whole bunch of Europeans. That's when you start seeing the influx of Europeans coming through Ellis Island in the early 20th century. Because at one point in time, we were the majority here in this country. We were the majority here. And they already know that because you know how our people make babies. Our people was having 12, 13 children in one shot. Whereas certain other people might have like 4 or 5 children, maybe the top with other people. So we were out populating people. We were talking about business again. And so people were heading that off at the pass and putting people in place like Michael King, because that's his real name, Michael King. He changed his name to Martin Luther. Notice they don't talk about that much. His name was Michael King. The name Martin Luther came from the Lutheran minister who broke off, the white Lutheran minister who started Lutheranism, who broke off from Christianity. I think he was from the Catholic Church or whatever. He broke off and started doing his own thing. His name was Martin Luther. That's where Martin Luther King takes his name from, or they took his name and attached it to Reverend Martin Luther King. You see, so all this was packaged. The civil rights movement was packaged. It was all packaged and sold to our people as a form of progression. Civil rights was sold to our people as a form of progression. Right. In other words, give your money to these racist white people, so and force them to take your money, and hope that they don't spit in your food, hope that they don't do some degenerate foul stuff in your food, and they don't want to serve you. And meanwhile, in the back of them kitchens was a lot of black people doing the cooking. And the back of a lot of them kitchens was black people doing cooking. You see, they tried to hold our people back from having their own businesses, establishing things for themselves. They tried to work against our people at every turn, and then turn around to my, oh, you niggas don't want to do nothing, y'all lazy. When we do something, they work against that. They set up, they pull up a person like Martin Luther King to work against our people. All these people, all these civil rights icons, all these people so-called going and trying to get a seat at the table and all this other nonsense. There's no seat at the table for our people. The only seat we're going to have is based on the table that we make for ourselves. There's no seat at the table. That's why I say a lot of you people want to still exist as black people. You will always, if you continue to exist as black people, you're always going to be seen as second-class citizens. You're not even considered a real people. Black is not a real people. You see? Exactly. I'm all for that. Stop being black. I've been saying stop being black. You see? I've been saying stop being black. I've been saying we're not black people anyway. I say we first Americans. We're not no black people. That term exists within the confines of the civil rights movement, within the confines of the U.S. government as a classification, a very poor classification for our people. In other words, they call us black people as a form of erasure. Again, they're not giving no reparations to no black people because there's no such thing as black people. They calling you that as damn near like a nickname because they don't want to call you first Americans. They don't really want to call you what you are, which is first Americans, the real Americans. They don't want to call you that. No, we say first Americans over here. We say first Americans. You can say American Indian. We say first Americans. That says it right there. You see, because the only reason why we don't like to say American Indian no more, because it just puts you in mind of a culture that we're no longer, doing anymore. The so-called indigenous culture, whatever that is, we first Americans. That says it all. That says indigenous, that says American Indian. First American says it all, and it's more modern. So we say that. But that's cool, brother. You can say first American. Well, okay, that's fine. I mean, you can say American Indian, that's fine. You can go to be American Indian. We first Americans here. You can be an American Indian. You can be an American Indian. That's fine. I'm not going to argue with that. I'm not against that. We just don't use that. You see, you can go ahead and be an American Indian. Because, again, the problem with the American Indian thing, again, is it people start trying to align you with the Native Americans, because you still got people out here who call themselves Black Native Americans. You see? Right? Exactly. The whole system has failed. It's still failed. Exactly. So, all right. But we 60 minutes in. I'm about to wrap this up. We're doing the first American Street Music Festival. Y'all know that. The first American Street Music Festival is coming. phasmfest.com. We need your help. We need our people donating to the first American Street Music Festival that's taking place this year in May 16th and 17th, 2026, in Rodney Cook Senior Park in Atlanta, the first American Street Music Festival, where we're going to be celebrating our American indigenous heritage. Because then that's another reason why we say first American, is because when you just say American Indian, you just think one group of, culture right there. Because again, we the first American cowboys, the first American Indians, we the first American everything here. We the first is another way of saying indigenous, that we belong to the land, not just a culture. You see, we belong to a land, not just a culture. You see, we are those copper-colored races, the Americans in 1828, the copper-colored races, the real definition of American The copper-colored races were found here by the Europeans, the copper-colored people, us. So we stand up for that as who we are as First American. So, all right. Do you agree with the ethnogenesis narrative being attached to Indigenous Americans? First, my name is Benjamin, not Nuben. That name is done. You got to look, man. I ain't go by that Nuben name. I'm been moved out of that. It's Benjamin. If you use that, you know, Lord Manhattan, Benjamin, not no Nuben. We don't use that. You got to catch up, bro. I'm just gonna say Benson. You got to catch up. I don't use that name no more. Where you been? You see Benjamin Manhattan. That's my name. There's no Nuben no more. That's done. That been done. You see, that time is going. So you can address me as Mr. Manhattan or Benjamin, whatever, or my everyday name Buck. You can address me as that, but no more. That Nuben been that's been going. But there's no ethnogenesis. There's no ethnogenesis. That's made up. Yeah. Well, you heard that from the FBAs about some ethnogenesis where we were brought from Africa and we mixed in with the indigenous people here. That's that FBA nonsense. There was no ethnogenesis. You know how you know there was no ethnogenesis? Because if there was an ethnogenesis, you would see African, we would have some African traits of culture from them. Okay. We belong to the land, and the white man wanted the land to belong to him. Yeah, he wanted the land to belong to him. But again, here's the thing. Like I said, we are a people of this land. So no matter what culture was here, you know, we were the Mesoamericans, going back to the Olmecs, the Aztec, the Inca, the Mayan. We were all of those people that made their way into North America. A lot of people was already in North America, in Mexico and things like that. Some of our people came over from South America. That's why you notice there's a lot more of our people in the South America than in North America, because some of our people came from there. Some of our people came in from Mexico. Again, we were always here in America. So that's why I say it's best that we say First American, because, you know, first is the only real thing. And no, there was no ethnogenesis. That's a lie. Our culture was always here in America. We were the same people that were talked about in Mesoamerica, who like they ball games, who like barbecuing, who like wearing gold and things like that. Same people, man. So there was no ethnogenesis. Where's the African culture at if we had an ethnogenesis? Where's African culture at in Black American culture? Somebody show me where's African culture at. Because you don't just come over. If you're saying it's an ethnogenesis, that means that our culture, because we do have a culture, our music, our food, our dance, everything is different from African culture. Our energy is different from the African energy and whatnot. So where does all of our stuff come from? If you're saying that, like Tariq Nasheed always point out, that we got different hairlines, you know, our hairlines are different, our foreheads, all the things are different, our features are different from the Africans. He stayed pointing out the differences, but then claim we come from Africans. So how can you point out differences if we come from them? We should have the same hairlines. We should have the same culture in some way, shape, or form. We do not. Africans will be the first one to admit our culture is different. They don't treat you like they people. So how is there an ethnogenesis? Where does our culture come from? If you're going to say our culture is indigenous culture, then that means we indigenous people. There's no African culture. There's no African culture that we come from. That's false. That's false. So, all right. Any other questions? We asked any question before we close this out? First Americans all day. First Americans. We don't come forward in the future. Let the Mongolians be Native Americans. Let the Caucasians, they all Native Americans. We the first Americans over here. We coming in, we done came into the field. That's why we doing the first American Street and Music Festival. The first American Street and Music Festival, Rodney Cook Senior Park. Okay, Rodney Cook Senior Park. May 16th and 17th. We would like you all, the people that are listening, if y'all rocking with us, can you donate to the First American Street Music Festival? Y'all sit up here, y'all been listening to me. Some of y'all still call me by that old name. Again, my name is Benjamin Manhattan. My name is not no Nuben or anything else. Don't call me that, because that'll get you kicked out the room, because y'all don't see Benjamin Manhattan. So if you're calling me anything other than that, you're being disrespectful. Benjamin Manhattan is my legal name. A buck. That's a nickname. So again, if I see any Nubans there, I'm kicking you out of my chats because you're trying to be funny. We moved on. And again, support the First American Street Music Festival. Support the First American Street Music Festival. FASM Fest, go to fasmfest.com. If you want to perform there, if you want to vend there, you can call and contact us, right? You can call and contact us, or it's actually contact the festival through fasmfest.com. There it is right in the chat, fasmfest.com. Like I said, we need sponsors. If you want to sponsor, promote your business, we're going to be out there for 2 days. We're going to be down the block from the HBCUs. We're going to be right down the street from the Mercedes-Benz stadium. Right. So check that out. If you want to contribute, we're taking donations. If you want to contribute, you can like $10, $20, throw it in the pot. It all goes there. Go to our fasmfest.com. Go to fasmfest.com. You can go hit the link down below and, see where you can contribute for the First American Street Music Festival. See, because unlike a lot of people who sit up here and talk about us being American Indigenous, American Indian, see, a lot of that talk is just talk on YouTube. But see, we actually living that out in real time as First Americans. We actually having festivals. We actually refer to ourselves in our community as First Americans. We have our own American community, our own First American community, the Republic of America Worldwide, ROA Worldwide. That is the First American community right there. We have our own American community. We have our own American names. That right there is my American name, Benjamin Manhattan. That's my American name, Benjamin Manhattan. Okay, that's an American name, a first American name. You see, Manhattan. So if you agree with what I'm saying and you want to be part of the First American community, Republic of America Worldwide, you can go to ROA Worldwide, because we are the ones putting on the First American Street Music Festival. It is an ROA Worldwide production. If you acknowledge that you were First American, you can go to ROA Worldwide and become a registered First American in the Republic of America, ROA Worldwide. If you want to donate, we would definitely appreciate your donations. If you want to see this happen, if you want to come out to the event, it's open to the public. You come out, go to again, fasmfest.com. Go, if you want to donate, go to our Cash App, $ROA Collective, $ROA Collective. So a lot of you in here, give a thumbs up to this cast. Give us a thumbs up. If you're not subscribed, go ahead and subscribe. Hit the like button. Show your support. You can also go to my Mentellect Patreon. Mentellect channels are still up all over the place, but you can go to the latest Mentellect stuff is coming out on Mentellect Patreon. Go to my Mentellect Patreon page and subscribe and become a member, because I do a nightly cast and we drop those casts nightly into the Patreon after a few days. So you can go and become a patron. Join Mentellect Patreon to hear me run my mouth every night. And plus, I'm going to be at the festival. I'm going to be at the festival running my mouth, the First American Street Music Festival. And like I was last year, we rebranded as the First American Street Music Festival. We got it legally outright. We're going to have live music. We're going to have DJs out there, live music. We're going to have merchandise out there, First American tees, all that. We're going to have our feathered head crowns, the ones that go up in the air, not the Native American ones that come down. All people was wearing the feathered ones that look like actual crowns that go up in the air. So we're going to have that out there for the men and the women. Like I said, we're going to have a good time out there, good music, good food. Vendors are going to be out there. Again, if you want to vend, if you want to sponsor, get in touch with us. Let me tell you, though, those you people who want to get in touch with us, please keep in mind, I'm going to tell you now, if you want to come and you want to sell things and set up, there's a fee for that. It's affordable, but you will not be allowed to sell any red, black, and green stuff. You won't be able to sell any Pan-African stuff, none of that African-American stuff, none of that black nonsense. We are celebrating who we are as First Americans. The bronze-skinned people, the copper-colored races. We are celebrating our First American heritage. We are not celebrating no African stuff, no ancient Egyptian stuff. So if you want to come there selling onks and black, red, and green shit, the answer is no. No, we first Americans here, and we're not mixing in anything else. So, no to any of that. For those of you who want to come out and sell some back to Africa, pro-black. No, we ain't doing that. We're not African over here, and we damn sure ain't black. So, and we damn sure ain't rocking with no Black History Month or Martin Luther King or the Civil Rights Movement. No, thank you. That's all. Thank y'all for listening to me. We're gonna close this out. And I'm not trusting, and Lord, I'm not trusting, Lord, I'm not in this message. I'm gonna do my cast tonight. I was on TikTok the other night. I had a good cast over there. Yeah, is this only in Atlanta? Yes, it is. It's only in Atlanta. We only doing it in Atlanta for now. We only want to do it in Atlanta. We'll talk about things down the road. But again, everybody should be coming out to Atlanta. Y'all should be looking at this First American Street Music, this First American Street Music Festival as a pilgrimage. If you live in someplace else, make the trip out. Bring your family out. This is going to be a family event. Y'all travel. This bugs me out. Y'all will get up here and go travel to Africa. You'll get up here and go travel to Egypt. You'll get up here and go look at some ruins. Yet we having a live festival here celebrating who we are as first Americans of America. We ain't rocking with none of that Africa and black stuff. We celebrating who we are as first Americans, and y'all too lazy to come to Atlanta. Y'all better get y'all asses up and come to Atlanta. Treat this like a pilgrimage. Treat this like you going to Mecca. Treat this like you going to Egypt. Treat this like you going to Africa. You know, all the places that ain't got nothing to do with us. Well, our people are, we got ancient Egyptians. Our people are black. We Egyptians. Yeah, our people. But though ancient Egypt is an American society. That's an ancient American society. People went over into Egypt and set up those societies. That's why you have the pyramid culture over here more prevalent than over there in Africa and Egypt. So this should be a pilgrimage. Our people should be making a pilgrimage to this. Our people should see this as a pilgrimage in which we are reclaiming who we are as first Americans. No more black, no more African American, no more Negro, no more FBA. Damn sure no FBA. Because again, we shouldn't have to be second-class citizens or take the second seat behind other people like we damn immigrants here. We don't need no African American remix. We don't need no civil rights nonsense talk. You know what we need? A reality check. We need a damn reality check. We are first Americans of America. That's it. And that's what we're going to be celebrating. So come on out to Atlanta, May 16th and 17th. Bring the family out. If you're coming from a different place, get a hotel. We're going to have a good time out here. We're going to be listening to live music. I'm going to be out there talking. We have a good time chopping up. You're going to learn some things. The children going to learn some things. They're going to go home, have a good time. Again, let's make this our Mecca. Let's make this our Mecca, like how the Arabs got Mecca. Let they go over there to Mecca. Let them go over to Mecca. Like how the Jews go to Israel, let them go. That's their holy place. Let this be our holy place for 2 days, celebrating our first American heritage. That's what I'm trying to get going and making sure that takes place here. Support this. Come on out and visit this. FASMFest.com. See how you can get involved. Get involved in this. Because again, nobody else is doing this. Nobody else is doing this. We are hooked in with the city of Atlanta. This is all above board. We're going to have the park for 2 days. We're going to have a good time out there. We have some our people who are first Americans to come out and celebrate and support that. Simple as that, man. Don't all that sitting online and yeah, we indigenous. Yeah, okay. Now it's time to show and prove. It's time to show and prove. Time to have and have a good time while doing it. This is going to be a family event. We ain't gonna have nobody up there rhyming and talking crazy and cursing you or foul language. We ain't doing all that. This is a family event for the children, adults, networking people and whatnot. This is, a good move pushing forward, trying to push our people out of that African American black mentality, man. But for those of you people that want to do that thing, go ahead, do your thing, man. We ain't with it. But that's it. Again, thank you all for listening. Again, FASMFest.com, FASMFest.com. Go to Mentellect Patreon, become a patron over there. Subscribe to this channel if you're not subscribed. Also subscribe to my other channel, the Realist channel featuring Mr. Buck Manhattan. That's me, Benjamin Buck Manhattan, same person. Go over there and subscribe to that, the Realist channel. All right, and thank you. What am I closing with? I gotta make sure I close with things that I don't get a strike on. because I can't be using all kinds of music. I got to start having my own music, which I'm gonna do. But I'll do this.
When I came to this town, there was nothing that was holding me back. Couple years of running around, you start to question your convictions. Long car, jet black, fast loving, that's a fact. Mind those words that you say. High heel, gold strap, cold heart, will pay it back. Mind those games that you play. Back then you were a friend of mine. Everything was black and white. The city life has changed your mind. Expose the gray of your convictions. Long car, jet black, hard loving, break your back. Mind those words that you say. High heel, gold strap, cold eyes, won't change the fact. Mind those games that you play. Long car, jet black, fast loving, that's a fact. Mind those words that you say. High heel, gold strap, cold heart, will pay you back. Mind those games that you play. Long car, jet black, hard loving, break your back. Mind those words that you say. High heel, gold strap, cold eyes, won't change the